Christina Ricci, let's go back to the beginning and talk us through how you got involved in this show.
Well, this show is based on a book called Z, a Zelda Fitzgerald novel written by Therese Fowler, and I just happened to read that book and really love it. And I thought for sure someone was already making it into a series. So I inquired about it and found out the rights were available, and then I hooked up with Pam Koffler at Killer Films, and we set it up, and Amazon just kind of jumped on it, and that was so exciting.
Yeah, what's it been like to work with a streaming service like Amazon on telling this kind of different and risque kind of story?
Well, it's been great because they really allow us such artistic freedom. They pride themselves on being all about the artists and filmmakers, and they really are. So it's been really wonderful.
It looks like it would be like a lot of fun to play someone who is, impulsive and also probably you could say quite self-destructive. Did you find that side of her fun, or was it more of a challenge?
No, that side is fun, definitely, but it is also a bit of a challenge because I found that it was sort of hard to play that kind of person who creates such. She creates for herself so many disasters and sort of jumps into so many things that end up, not going so well. And a lot of it is based on her particular issues. And it's hard to do those kinds of things and play that kind of person, being aware of how, and still try to be relatable to a mass audience instead of people who are specifically kind of understand this character.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from actors who are especially playing real people, but just any kind of character. Are you ever conscious of or concerned about being likable, or is that not really what's motivating you in trying to find the truth of this character?
That doesn't usually motivate me. But with this, we really were trying to tell Zelda's story from Zelda's point of view and fight a lot of the sort of lore and myth about her, which is basically that she's a horrendous, crazy alcoholic who ruined F. Scott Fitzgerald's life. So because we were trying to fight that, I was very cognizant of trying to make her as relatable as possible, because the whole point of the series is to sort of pull back the curtain and allow people to understand what was behind all of this. So it's really the first time that I've ever really been concerned as an actor with being likable or relatable. So for me, that was definitely a challenge, because I usually just try to play the honesty and the reality. So for me to step out and try to observe my performance in that kind of objective way was very, very different for me.
And is it harder to play someone real, a real life person, when you're doing a biopic or a show about a real life people, or is it something that's easier because you've got something to draw from?
Well, it's easier, and then it's also harder. I think one really great thing for me as an actor is that there's no video of this woman because once people sort of get attached to the way a person talks or the way a person acts, then as an actor you end up having to not only play the truth of the character, but also kind of not do an imitation, but adopt all these other things that people are really tied to. So that was helpful for me to have that kind of freedom. But at the same time, and also really helpful that there is, like you say, so much information, and my ability to do research was just like, so many people have been sort of obsessed with this couple and really obsessed with her. So there's tons of material out there. So that was great. But then another challenge is when you're playing somebody who, for people who know about her and people who are interested in her, she's very, people who love her and are obsessed with her, or there's the other side that really doesn't like her. And you kind of want to, for me, I wanted to be aware of both sides. and I didn't want to disappoint people who really hold her up as an icon. And then I didn't want to give the people who hate her anything to hate about her. So yeah, it was definitely a balancing act, I would say.
Yeah, I think that would be actually quite challenging because you do have to kind of please everybody, but everybody seems to know something about Zelda, even if you just know her name and you know who she was married to and what he wrote. And there's why do you think that is? Like, why after all these years and decades are they still so knowable? Like, it's a terrible word in our pop culture.
Well, I mean, they really were one of the first celebrity couples that followed sort of this, that became sort of tabloid fodder in a way that we are very used to now. But at the time, it was brand new and amazing. And it was just after World War I, so the class system was falling apart. And they were really the first two people who were really famous. And she was one of the first people who was really famous for not really doing anything. She wasn't from a royal family. She wasn't from one of America's first families. She wasn't wealthy. He wasn't wealthy. So it was a new kind of celebrity that I think really fascinated people. And then I think particularly with Zelda, her behavior, I think is much more relatable and understandable for a modern audience. And I think that was probably the fascination with her, is that her behavior was so out of time and out of place that people were fascinated. Like we've caught up with her a little bit, and now it's not off-putting anymore because we have the ability to understand and relate to her.
Yeah, she was totally ahead of her time, and definitely I would say that she was a feminist. Would you agree that that's a really good way to put it?
I think she's a great she's a great story for feminists to teach other women. It's just sort of like a cautionary tale for feminism, I think. And Zelda herself always said that she was not a feminist. And I think one of the things that really defines her as not a feminist, but someone who had these leanings, and certainly an example of things that we should know about, I guess. I don't know how to say it properly, was that she very much, she kind of straddled both worlds. She was smart enough. She could have done well in school and gone to one of the first like women's colleges, which one of her peers did. They followed a very similar track, except for her friend, who was very similar to her, went to college and became famous on her own terms, and then sort of was married and all that stuff. And Zelda was a little bit lazy, and Zelda relied on her looks and relied on, her plan was to marry into success. And that is not a feminist ideal. And because of that laziness, she ended up not really having the freedom that a feminist would have fought for and set herself up to have. And I think that that is one of the things that's really important about this story, is that it really looks at how a woman fueled the misogyny that destroyed her. And I think that at this time and place in the world, I think we sort of, as women, need to look at how we perpetuate the things around us, and misogyny really around us, what part we have to play in it.
What could possibly be more timely at the moment than topics like that? And the irony is you're doing a period piece, and a lot of us who have come into this show were probably initially attracted to the period, because it's a period that we don't see very often, and we know that it's going to be really gorgeous to look at. So the question about that is, how critical are costumes and sets and makeup to creating and embodying a character at this time?
Oh, I think you can't discount how important those things are. You know, the way a person dresses is indicative of who they are. The way a person decorates their space is indicative of who they are. And those things are just so important to an actor, and like you say, to an audience in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go back in time, if we can, to when you first started out in this business, and so it was late 80s, early 90s. I was only a very young teenager. I remember you were in Mermaids with Cher, and then you were obviously Wednesday Addams. A lot of people will still probably remember you as Wednesday Addams from when you were a kid. When you look back at those times, what's the one thing that comes to mind that you think that you learned most about your profession?
I think when I was a child, the thing that I learned the most was sort of set behavior and how to be a good fellow actor, and how to be just a good sort of team player on a set and on a crew. And those kinds of things are just, they're so important. And I got to work with such incredible actors and learn so many incredible things. I mean, I worked with Rob Licuria, who taught me that you never stop. You play through, no matter what happens, you keep the scene going. And I feel very fortunate that I learned from these people who are like classically trained, amazing actors, because they really sort of, I feel like, gave me a foundation, because I'm not trained. So I didn't have that. I sort of was able to sort of take everybody else's training,
Yeah.
and make it my own.
And obviously, you know, you're still working, you're still quite successful, and you know, you've received awards, nominations for various projects we'll talk about in a sec. But can you see the potential, obviously, for many child actors who do spiral out of control and never are able to succeed as adults? Can you see why that would be?
Yeah, I absolutely can. I think there's many factors at play, but I think one of the biggest factors is that if the most success and validation you've achieved in your life is for being a child, I think it's very hard to lose those childish attributes that will prevent you from moving on as an adult actor. So that's just one side of it. And I see it in myself. You know, I have a tendency to infantilize myself. And that's because the success that I was given was for being this incredible child. And it's taken me a long time to sort of strip all that stuff away.
Yeah. Make peace with it and kind of just get on with it. And which you did. You received an Emmy nomination in 2006 for your role on Grey's Anatomy, and you also got a SAG nod last year for the Lizzie Borden Chronicles. What's it like being nominated? Do you think awards are important? Do you care about them? Like, what's your view on awards and being nominated for things?
I would love to say that they don't matter and I don't think about that stuff and who needs them, but the truth of the matter is that there's nothing more exciting than being recognized by your peers. There's nothing more validating than having people who really know what you do for a living say you did a great job. When I got my SAG nomination, that was so incredibly important to me in a way that I didn't expect, because it meant so much, because I felt like these people really know what you have to, what goes into a great performance. And, you know, if they could see that in this, then it really means something. And yeah, I mean, it was so incredibly, it meant so much to me. And I think it even surprised me how much it meant.
Yeah, but it's so refreshing to hear. A lot of actors obviously try to, you know, say that it's no big deal, but many of the actors I speak to are really refreshingly honest. And I think it's fair enough for any profession. It doesn't matter what you do. If you've got people that do what you do and know how hard it is or whatever, and they're validating you for doing a good job, surely that has to be a good thing. So I'm glad you said that.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I know we're supposed to say it doesn't matter, but everybody knows. I mean, not everybody, but it really does. It means so much.
Yeah. So you're coming back for a second season, which is really exciting. What can we expect, and what would you like to see?
Well, we are going to really sort of reset the series. So we're, you know, the series always kind of had this ability to have a different structure, and we're really kind of going to go with a little bit of more, maybe a more like non-linear structure. And I think the next season they will be, we'll jump ahead a little bit in the storyline, and they will be in Europe, and we will kind of reveal a little bit the things that took place in between the time the last season happened and where they are in Europe.
Okay.
So that's exciting. That means that we get to have Hemingway and all those intriguing and fantastic characters.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. Well, Christina, we hope to see your show at the Emmys in a few months. Good luck this Emmy season.
Thank you so much.